My name is Trinice McNally. I'm a Black queer feminist, migrant, creative, and educator, and I'm here to talk about Queen Nanny of the Maroons on this 59th Independence Day. I first learned of Queen Nanny of the Maroons from my grandmother, Valletta McNally, and I was talking to my grandmother about all the dope Black freedom fighters I was learning in school, but they were all from the US. And she talked to me about Nanny of the Maroons, for us Queen Nanny. And one of the first things I learned was about how she was able to navigate our land, how she was able to transcend, really honestly, time, because Nanny for some people was like a mythological figure, but those of us who are proud Jamaicans, and I would say African people, know that she was actually real, not just because of the folk tales and the stories, but honestly because we're here, right? We are actually a testament to her strength and her commitments. So my grandmother would tell me like all of these stories and like sing songs about how she conquered the British and how she created camouflage and how I came from a strong lineage of Black women. And I remember talking to her about Harriet Tubman, right? Like, 'cause I came from home talking about like Black freedom fighters from the US, and she was like, well, this is your Harriet Tubman. The Maroons were largely formerly enslaved Africans who decided to rebel against their slave masters and rebel against white supremacy. And they took up space, often in the jungle and the forest and the woods, and in places where colonizers, right, slave masters would not go. Largely because number one, they could navigate the land, but two, most importantly, to rebel and to be defiant as an act of resistance, that we do and we will create our own communities, right? We will exist how we have existed before we were stolen and brought to this land. And I think the most important thing that people should know about Maroons is that resistance and freedom, right, was always at the foundation of why they rebelled. Queen Nanny was a military strategist, right? Guerrilla warfare was her primary job, right? That's her primary skill that she was able to lead and save over 1,000 enslaved Africans into Maroon territory, right? Which is where they lived. And one of the best stories I think I've learned is about the British and their red coats coming up into the forest, into the Blue Mountains, thinking that they were gonna run up on the Maroons. But the Maroons actually had something in store for them that literally they could not see. And that is actually how the art of camouflage came about. The landscape and the agriculture is largely foresty, right? Swampy. So they were able to navigate that same like land in Jamaica. And what they would do is paint their bodies in black and brown and in green and cover their bodies in plants and trees. So when the British would run back to their settlements and to their plantations, they would always talk about how they saw moving trees that were walking. It wouldn't be possible for us to be celebrating or even being able to be in a moment of freedom, honestly, without Queen Nanny's leadership, without her bravery, and without her commitment to Black freedom for Black people. If it wasn't for the work that she was able to do in leading over 1,000 enslaved Africans into Maroon territory, I think the idea of being able to not be owned, right? So I'm not talking about slavery, I'm also talking about what happened post-slavery in terms of colonization. It wouldn't have been possible, right, for folks to be leading that fight in the 60s. So when we think about independence, we also need to be thinking about Black women, right, girls, femmes, and gender expansive people who have also been at the forefront of rebellion and also resistance, which makes me think of why this project is so important, because a huge part of this is really creating this fundraiser to support TransWave. TransWave is leading revolutionary work in Jamaica. They are the only Black transgender organization moving work to support trans people and gender expansive people specifically. And right now, they're literally fighting for their lives like trans people are everywhere. People should not have to be afraid to take public transportation in fear for their life, not knowing if they're going to get home safe. People not should be afraid to walk home because they're going to be attacked or they're going to encounter some type of violence or potentially even be killed. We are raising money to ensure that TransWave staff, community members, volunteers, and members have access to safe transportation that not only keeps them safe but alive, right? They cannot do this work that is so important if they are not here. And what we're trying to do is create a level of safety and support in hopes, right, that it creates some type of sanctity for the people that are leading this work on the island, but also across the globe. And I'm thinking that folks can get from this collaboration that, you know, this is just not Jamaican Independence Day, this is just not about Queen Nanny, and this is just not about the work that Black Women Radicals is doing with organizations like TransWave, but this is truly about being in Black solidarity with Black folks on the margins. And I think that if folks say that Black lives matter, right, and you care about Black people, then that means Black trans people too.